Welcome food fans, picky eaters, the flavor curious, and everyone in between. Nothing makes good food better than good conversation. And your table is ready. Come right this way to the Food for Thoughtcast with your host, Melissa Reagan. But you can call her Chef. All right, let's get this episode started.
As a chef and a person who loves all kinds of food, I'm always looking for ways that I can emphasize quality over quantity without feeling like I'm missing out or depriving myself of the things that I love. And I love pasta. Carbonara, mac and cheese, primavera, cacio e pepe, you name it and I'm all about it. That's why I choose Bonza. Bonza is the pasta made from chickpeas, which means it has more protein, more fiber, and I believe more flavor than regular old pasta. Seriously, if you go in my pantry right now, there are 2 boxes in there awaiting their next culinary adventure. Bonza has over 12 different kinds of pasta, including penne, rotini, elbows, and cavatappi, which is my favorite, because all of those curves and ridges hold even more delicious sauce. Bonza also makes pizza crust, which tastes too good to believe that it comes from peas. You can find Bonza at Whole Foods, Target, and Walmart. Hey there, food fans. Welcome back to the Food for Thoughtcast with me, your host, Melissa Reagan. Joining us today is Sandra from Hippos and Hashbrowns. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on. Before we get started, I have to ask you what I ask every guest. What is the most amazing thing that you ate this week?
So, if you cook full time, you're looking for quick and easy things to eat.
Absolutely.
So my latest sort of new food addiction are pita chips from Brothers Kitchen. Brothers, I can't remember the name of. Anyway, they have a restaurant in Plano, and they've been coming to good local markets this year with pita chips and hummus, and they are addictive pita chips. So, yeah, I buy them every week now. They're my staple after work go-to snack.
I love it. So, are you a plain hummus or flavored hummus gal?
Plain.
Yeah?
I don't like all the other thing. I just want it now. Yeah, just plain.
I love it. I love it. It sounds delicious. And you're right. If you cook all the time, you're looking for quick and easy. I think I've been doing tuna packets and crackers.
Yeah, there you go.
Sometimes you want to go all out and sometimes you just need fast sustenance.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, I'm home. I'm tired. What food?
Right. Well, as I mentioned at the top of the show for the listeners, is Sandra is from Hippos and Hashbrowns. And so I would just want to get started by asking you, how did the name come about, and tell us how Hippos and Hashbrowns came to be?
Well, my family moved back from Africa in like 2015 in the fall, and I was looking for a business that I could do from home because we still had a child at home that was homeschooling and all of that. And so I was going to teach people how to cook. That was going to be my thing. But then when I started talking to everybody and all the foodies, they're like, you know what? Nobody wants to cook. They want you to do it for them. Take your baked goods, go to the farmer's market. So the name kind of developed with a different business in mind, but the Hippos is obviously like a nod back to our time in Africa, and Hashbrowns just kind of went with it. And it just kind of hints at the fact that we lived in such a remote area. If we wanted something to eat, I was going to be making it, everything from scratch, by hand, all the things, including actually not often hash browns because they're very, I don't know what, I never could get them right. But Fritos, for example, if you want corn chips, you're making them by hand. So you learn to do it. So yeah.
Right. How long were you there in Africa?
We were in East Africa for like 14 years.
was that a straight 14 years or were you coming back for short periods of time?
No. We were well, we lived there. I mean, we came back like every
Mm-hmm.
3 years for about a six
Mm-hmm.
month furlough or stateside time.
Sure.
So yeah, we were living there, but only came back to the States like every maybe 3 or 4 years.
Did you find it a bit of a culture shock going back and forth, like for the things that were available? You mentioned Fritos.
Yeah. I mean, like there were certain foods. I mean, we're all about food, right? Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You can wash
Mm-hmm.
your hair with anything, but food. Um, there are certain foods that even now I find I don't remember they exist. Um, I don't like go to the grocery store very much. I have my groceries delivered. So somebody mentions like a certain type of cracker or something they got, and I'm like, oh yeah, I lived so long without those. I forgot they were even around.
You're
So
like,
yeah.
oh yeah, that's a thing.
Uh-huh. Yeah. But
um,
yeah, absolutely. Moving back was a huge adjustment. America changed a little bit in 14 years, so it was
I
different.
bet. Well, just like any of us would change it in 14 years, right?
Yes. Yeah, I guess
People
I did too, maybe.
people grow and things change. I want to know a little bit about how you started the business. So you mentioned that people didn't want to cook, or you were providing a service. You figured out a niche, right? That people wanted, that
Yeah.
people were willing to pay for. And so I know that you have a brick and mortar location over in Costa View here in Dallas. So I want to hear a
Mhm.
little bit about how that happened.
Well, if you're going to start a business out of your home, Texas is a really friendly place to do that. The
Hmm.
cottage food laws enable you to make a lot of different things at home. So just working within those guidelines, that's why I started the business. And I was like, okay, I can bake. So here's all this stuff you can bake at home. That's easy. Let's do it. Take it to the farmer's market. And like I said, the first market it was really obvious that, um, yeah, that is what people wanted. I mean, it was an immediate hit. Um, and so, we trotted on for about a year or so. That actually started out in Kingwood, just outside of Houston. And once we got back to Dallas, I thought, if I could do this in Kingwood where I don't know anybody, definitely can make it successful in East Dallas where I know the vibe of the community and I know how supportive the community is of local businesses. I thought I can definitely do it here. So I started again at the farmers market up here. And after about a year, realized that there was real opportunity in the wholesale space. Our top selling item are those little specialty seeded crisps, crackers. And you look around for a little bit and you go, you know what? Nobody is doing these locally. Nobody in the entire state of Texas is actually producing
Right.
these. And that was my top seller at the market every week. Um, and as you know, there has been a big push toward locally produced food items, right? Even
Yeah,
locally
absolutely.
manufactured food items.
Yep. Hmm.
So, I just went with it and started looking for commercial space, a church here, a business there, a kitchen there. Um, and we worked at the mixed kitchen for 4 years maybe before getting our own space.
Yeah.
But it got to the point where, business was good enough that my hourly rate was kind of keeping me down, so to speak. Like I couldn't like increase production without increasing that monthly spend on
Yeah,
rent. And so it's
absolutely.
just like, okay, I never really thought I'd have a brick and mortar, but never say never.
Right, right. Well, and eventually you'll outgrow a space. And so for the listeners, I have some listeners outside of Texas. So what she's referring to, the mix is like a mixed use kitchen space that's in the basement of a White Rock United Methodist Church here in East Dallas. And
Hmm.
East Dallas is a thriving community, very close knit and very supportive of one another, especially when it comes to like local businesses and small businesses and those kind of like mixed use spaces, right? Like I've never seen so much of that in other parts of Dallas. We really kind of have it nailed down on this side, and there's a ton of small businesses and things that are thriving, and it's
Hmm.
because the community's keeping them alive.
Very
And then
supportive.
and the Hippo crisp that Sandra is talking about, those are delicious. Those are so
Thank you.
good. Yeah, I really love it. I want to try everything that you offer in your bakery, and I also kind of have to slow myself down a little bit because for me, the serving size of anything is like 5 to 10. So it gets a little bit like, okay, we're gonna do one thing at a time. So I want to know, did you grow up cooking or baking or both?
Really I was more interested in baking when I grew up. I started, um, I guess I started probably 12 or 13, making cookies for the family and that kind of thing. Um, Somebody says, "Oh, it'd be really good if we had some chocolate chip cookies. Wouldn't that be really good?" I'd be like, "Yeah, it sure would. Yeah, sure, Dad. I'll go make some." And so, I did. My mother was a great cook. My dad's mom was a great cook. My brothers all cook. My kids cook. Everybody cooks in our family. Because
It's a
we
family
like good
affair.
food. Yeah, we love good food. We love eating good food, and the best food is the food you make yourself. So, yeah.
It is indeed. I love that. I grew up cooking. I learned a lot from my grandmother, and of course, I went to culinary school, and I had a lot of other teachers along the way, both family and not family. But I never really had the patience to bake. It's so scientific. It was very much like a handful of this, a pinch of that,
hmm
and then what happens when your hand is not the same size as your grandmother's, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
The
grams.
recipe,
That's why
right?
you measure in grams.
Absolutely. Like there's not much more valuable in the kitchen than a scale.
Yeah,
And
no kidding.
so rubber spatula, I tell people that's where the pennies and nickels live. You have to get every little bit out of every container and bowl. And that's where your food cost is in that rubber spatula. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, it wasn't until I got like jobs in industry where we would start measuring things or weighing things out very specifically. But I like the creativity. Not that you can't be creative when you're baking, right? But there was just something about it. It felt so tedious as I was a kid, and I really wish I had learned more or how to do it better.
Yeah, I think there's two types of cooks. I think there's there's bakers and chefs, and
Yeah.
it's a different thing. Like if I never had to touch meat again, I'd be really happy. You know what I mean? It's like I want to eat it, but I don't really know that I want to touch it to process it to, yeah,
That's
yeah,
interesting. No, I mean,
yeah.
I get it. I get it. I go through that with certain ingredients, or I have dishes that, you're right in saying nothing tastes better than the food you make yourself, but there's some things that I want to eat out, right? Like I have no interest in making pizza here at the house. It
Yeah,
seems
look,
like
I'm
an
not making
ordeal.
fried chicken. I
Right.
told my husband the other night, I said, look, I actually made some chicken. He goes, "Oh, did you fry it like I like it?" I'm like, never. Just quit asking that question. I'm never frying in my house ever again,
There-
ever. I'm just not doing it.
there's just some things that are not as much fun to cook or eat at home. They're an event or it's a destination type deal.
Yeah, there's other
Um,
people who are doing chicken fried steak. It's fine. It's fine.
yeah, and they're doing it really well.
That's right. And
Yeah.
that doesn't mess up my kitchen. I don't need that stuff all over my kitchen.
And that's the thing about, East Dallas. I really feel like if you're looking for the person who does the best, X, Y, and Z, you're likely to
Yeah,
find it, right?
absolutely.
And those are the businesses that we want to keep alive. Those are like not the
Yeah,
chains, you know.
definitely.
I want to know more about your waffles. So for the listeners, the sourdough waffles are absolutely ridiculous. They're really delicious.
Thank you.
So tell me more about how this started.
Um, okay. Well, let's just go ahead and say they're probably, they're arguably the best waffles in Dallas. I didn't say that, but people tell me. Um, I'm not really going to disagree on it. I absolutely love them. And I don't think you can get sourdough waffles anywhere. I think that's another unique thing. I don't know that anybody out there is doing sourdough waffles. And I made waffles for my family for years. It was like a thing that we did. Um, but a completely different recipe. And for whatever
Right.
reason, I don't remember how it came about. I thought, you know what? I'm going to try this sourdough waffles. I think because somebody gave me a recipe for sourdough pancakes that they said their dad used to make, and it was
Right.
amazing, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, who wants pancakes when you can have waffles? But I thought, but let's try this recipe. And wow. I mean, I immediately was blown away by just the texture and everything, the taste. And I thought, yeah, this is the recipe we're making from now on. And it's very tedious to make waffles in
Yeah.
quantity, but I mean, I have a
Yeah,
good friend
it
and she does
is.
them every week. So,
Right.
here we are.
It's about
They're
you
amazing.
finding, yeah, it's like you find the people that share the same, love or passion that you do, and you bring them along on the journey.
It's
Um,
really cool though, because
yeah.
people come and will say things like, um, this is all my wife could eat when she was pregnant. And so they're buying
Oh,
them every week for her because she's sick, or whatever. Or, oh, this changed my life, or these waffles are a game changer. And I'm like, just the comments
hmm.
that people make about them. It's very rewarding.
Yeah, I know that has to be hugely gratifying.
It really is. It really is.
And so I won't ask you to divulge any secrets, but I do want to, explain just about sourdough and how it works. And so, a lot of times you see recipes out there in the wild, right, as we like to say, for sourdough pancakes and waffles, and they're made using the discard that somebody has used from sourdough starter that they were using for bread. So is this like a starter discard type recipe, or you're creating this sourdough specifically for the waffles? And if you can't answer that, I totally understand.
Yeah, it's more of a sourdough discard recipe.
Mm-hmm.
We don't do any breads or anything, so we keep our sourdough starter specifically for making our waffles, our biscuit. We started doing it in a chocolate chip cookie.
Oh,
We have a
sounds
chocolate
amazing.
cake that we make with it. So we use it specifically for those things, but it's a really nice organic starter that my daughter-in-law did, like, I don't know, years ago. She was going to get into bread making or something. It's been a long time. Um, and she was going to get into bread making, and she's like, I'm going to make this starter, and I'm going to ferment the grapes and catch the wild yeast and the
Yeah.
whole thing. So anyway, she got to a point where she couldn't keep it up. She's like, I can't keep it going. Do you want this starter? I'm like, absolutely, I want this starter. And I don't know, that was when we still had the business, because the business was right when we moved back to Dallas, still had it, but didn't really do a whole lot with it at the time. And then started making sourdough biscuits and sourdough waffles, and then finding all these recipes, different things for sourdough chocolate cake. I can't wait for it to get a little bit cooler so that I can
Right.
bring it to the farmer's market, because it's got a really amazing icing on it, which melts above like
Yeah.
75 degrees or whatever. So,
Otherwise, in Texas, your entire thing will melt into a
yeah,
puddle, and maybe the cake will slide off of each
exactly.
other.
So
And
we have a
you
seasonal
know,
menu, and I'm
yeah,
I'm ready for fall, but this sourdough chocolate cake is another really good um use for the sourdough. It's a good sourdough starter. It really is. But
yeah.
and people will say, "Do you sell your starter?" And I'm like, "No, but if you come by and you bring a container, I'll give you some of it because it's a good starter."
That's so special. I mean, you're not going to get that in a chain bakery. You know what I mean?
No,
Like,
no, no, they're not giving you their starter.
that's so special, right? And then the really fun thing about sourdough and other ferments is that when somebody takes a little bit of your sourdough starter into their home, the yeast they catch out of the air are going to be completely different. So the flavor
Exactly.
profile in whatever they're making with it is going to be different. And I think it's so fascinating to me how that used to be the standard way that people made bread before
Right.
they understood the science of how it worked.
Yeah.
There weren't any there, we're talking pioneer days and before, way before, there wasn't any Instagram or TikTok to show people that you throw half of it away and you feed it and this is what it's supposed to look like. And I can't imagine the type of
Yeah.
trial and error it took just to make bread to live. Right? Like,
Yeah. And
it's insane.
here's the thing. People think it's really, they get really intimidated by it and think it's real difficult, but it's really not. And it's flour and water and time. And if you mess it up, don't worry about it. People make it more complicated than it really needs to be. It's
Yeah.
just a matter of, like you say, experimenting, finding what works in your environment. And a lot of people like our sourdough things because it's much easier for them to tolerate. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You
Yeah,
add the
absolutely.
sourdough, you add that fermented product with the flour and the whatever else you're putting in there, butter, whatever else it might be. And
Right.
suddenly it's a lot more easier for them to tolerate and to digest.
There's something really special about the way that sourdough acts on gluten, and so it breaks those gluten strands down. And gluten, as I've mentioned before, listeners, is what gives bread its network, right? It's what makes it chewy. It builds the structure of things like bread and pasta. And folks will always say they have to have a ginger ale when they fly, and nobody understands it's the power of that fermented liquid is actually helping to calm your stomach. And
Mm-hmm.
there's fermentation and all sort of things that we love to eat and drink, right? And yeah, and so man, it's just incredible. It's so much more complex and special than we give it credit for. But you're right, it doesn't have to be difficult either. But like full on confession, I've been in the business for 20 years this year, and I've never kept a sourdough starter alive successfully.
Alive. It's probably, yeah. The thing is, I think most people don't realize you can resurrect it at almost any point. When we lived in Kenya, I did sourdough all the time, kept a starter going. And we would go away sometimes where we lived, it was like an 8-hour trip to get into the city where we would be able to shop for groceries and get a haircut and go to the doctor and all
Wow.
those other kind of things that we would. I mean, when I say 8 hours, I don't mean like from here to wherever 8 hours in Texas is. I mean, half of that on unpaved roads. It was
I think
maybe,
you can maybe roughly get to like Branson in 8
yeah,
hours.
I mean,
Yeah.
it may have been like 150 miles or 150 kilometers. I don't even know which. Wasn't that far. It should really have only taken like 4 hours, but half of it was on unpaved roads. But at any rate, we'd get there and we'd leave that starter alone for a week in the refrigerator. And it was fine. And sometimes you get there and somebody gets sick and you're there for 2 or 3 weeks.
Right.
You get back and you know what? You can probably resurrect a starter at almost any point. It just takes, again, a little bit more time and attention to get it going back again. But yeah, people, I killed my starter. I'm like, did you? You could probably resurrect it.
Maybe she's just sleeping.
Yeah.
It's hibernating.
It's in a coma, maybe, but it'll be fine.
I think, so I had successfully, I had a few going at one time. And I mean, I think everybody kind of during COVID decided to try to get into sourdough.
Yeah. Right.
We didn't have anything else to do. I would move this. I had moved a starter a couple of times successfully from outside into the refrigerator to kind of hibernate, and then revitalized it and brought it back to life. I think the problem at my house is the humidity, and so mine would end up getting a mold.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Yeah.
That one you have shots.
So I would joke that my sourdough had become penicillin because it would be very much like a blue cheese situation where you didn't want
saved
blue cheese. So, I mean, if that's the worst thing that's happened in your life, right? I don't know.
Yeah, true.
Tell me about the baking in Kenya, or what's it like to bake outside of the United States? It must look like very different, or is it very much the same?
It's pretty different. I mean, it was pretty, I don't know. I'm going to say it was fairly similar, possibly. We could get pretty good flour and that kind of thing in Nairobi. And like I say, that's really where we bought almost all of our things because there just wasn't anything available in our little town. And it was great because, I had plenty of time to experiment and learn and try and make new things. So I don't know, apart from being at such high altitude, and that wasn't as much of a challenge as I expected it to be. I would say it was really pretty much the same. Once you figured out what things were, what the ingredients were. What is that? That's what you call that. Might not be called the same thing.
Right. I mean, I think for the most part, food is fairly universal. Now, was it a little bit of a shock going to the metric system for cooking, or was that pretty simple too?
Yeah, that was an adjustment, to be honest. That was an adjustment. We were fortunate enough to have a lot of people who've gone before us, and even some who had literally put together a cookbook, a guide to cook, a newcomer's guide to cooking in Africa or something, I think it was called. And it was put together by, a lot of the women who had come before.
Right.
And all their recipes. And so they had figured out what worked and how to make XYZ from scratch, because we never had to make that from scratch before. Um,
Right.
so it, had all those things. And that cookbook is still around today, and there are still people using it today. And I still use a lot of the recipes from it today. Um, I don't remember when it was first published, to be honest, maybe in the early 70s, late 60s or something like
Wow.
that. I really don't remember the publishing date, but these women were like the first, women to come to East Africa, and maybe I guess some of them Southern Africa, but mostly East Africa.
Yeah.
And as an American cooking in a different environment, what do you do? And so they had it all figured out already by the time I got there. Just get
How,
the cookbook,
I
which is
love that.
gifted to you when you arrive, kind of, in language school. You're gifted this cookbook usually,
Wow.
hopefully. And then, somebody takes you to the grocery store and says, that's what the flour is, and that's where the ketchup is, and this is what they call it. And you go, okay, I might make it. I might make it.
I mean, everything is so standardized here, right? And everything is very part of the cultural conscious. Like if you grow up in America, it's very much like all the things look like this. This
Yes.
is what we use, and so
Yeah.
I love the idea of like being provided like a user's manual when you get there.
You have to. You're never going to make, well, you don't have to, but you might cry a lot more if you don't.
So, Sandra, do you mind me asking if this was like a mission situation?
You can ask whatever you want. I'm an open book. Yes, it was. Yes.
Well, I love that so much. I think there's something so, distinctly spiritual about feeding other people and meeting that need. I think that's
I
a
agree.
really just a beautiful thing. That it's
I
just
agree.
that making something with your hands is, we can feed each other in a way that's where we're taking care of each other's spiritual needs, right? Like you might be answering a prayer request or giving somebody encouragement, but man, there's something wholly different about feeding somebody food, right? Like it's just a really beautiful exchange of like, I care for you, so I did this, right?
Yeah, it really is. And you notice you just did a play on words there. I think maybe you didn't notice it. You said it's wholly different.
Ah, yeah.
Slightly. It is. It is.
I,
There's something very I mean, there's something really deep and significant about feeding other people. That's why we make food.
yeah.
We make food. People who make food, whether it's for a living or not, but surely people who go into it to make a living, you're doing it because you like to create, but you're also doing it out of a love for people, and because you want to say, this is from me and this is from my heart, and I want to share this with you. I mean, I
Right.
think that's why we do it.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I love puns on this show, and a lot of times
Yeah.
they happen intentionally, but that one was unintentional,
Yeah.
and,
I
and really
noticed it.
and really sweet how it happened. But
Yeah.
I think there's something so fulfilling about being able to meet a need in that way, and it's something it's very much like servant oriented. It's
Yeah.
just being able to provide something for somebody else. So
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
that's really really sweet. I love to see that happen for somebody, and I think it's really really important too. For everybody, whether you're affiliated with a church or a religion or not, like do get out of the United States once in a while just to
No kidding.
experience. The world out there is huge, and it's not
Hmm.
limited to. It's not all McDonald's burgers and fries.
No, no, it's really important. I mean, if I was going to tell anybody to do anything for or with their kid, particularly a teenager, young person, young adult, or whatever, somebody that's in those formative years, yeah, take them outside the United States. You know what I mean? If you've never done it, you should do it. But absolutely, I feel like every young person should do it. Every young American should do that. I could go on,
Yeah.
but I mean, I just think it's important to see there's a
Right.
different world that exists beyond what you see every day, and it's important to know it.
Yeah, and I mean, and I think one of the most, for me, one of the most exciting ways that you can get to understand another people group is by cooking their food.
Or sitting with them and
Yeah,
eating their food. You know what I mean?
absolutely. It's
Yeah.
just so it's so important to, break bread with one another. And, for my listeners, like I'm a believer. I don't get religious on the show very often, but you cannot separate the act of loving somebody through feeding them away
Yeah.
from what you believe, if
Right.
that's what you believe. So
Yeah.
that's a really beautiful thing.
Yeah.
I have to ask, what do you like to bake when you're baking just for fun versus like baking for money? Does that make sense? Does that change anything for you, or is it all the same?
It definitely changes for me because like I told you, those crisp, they're kind of our number one thing. We do them,
Yeah.
every Monday. It's kind of a 2-part process, actually. And that's just we get in there and we do it kind of thing. But on Tuesdays, I can come in and I can make kind of what I want to make. But what I made yesterday was a lot of yeasted products,
Hmm.
doughs for things. And I really, really was enjoying it. I mean, I made um, like a cinnamon roll dough. We're doing Danish now, and
I saw
look, I'm
that.
not a
I saw that on
pastry,
the
I'm not a pastry
Instagram.
chef,
Yeah.
so it's kind of a cheap Danish. But I love working with yeasted doughs. Absolutely, absolutely love it. I did that all day yesterday, and I thought, oh well, this is just magical, magical. I also like making
It's
cookies because they're quick and satisfying.
right.
But to work with like a brioche dough or any kind of yeasted dough is just like I love it. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, I mean, there's something really it's like an instant satisfaction factor when you're using a yeasted dough. It just takes a little bit less. You get to see the results just a little bit faster, right? It's not necessarily any easier depending on what you're making, but the sourdough is a really long process, and so you
It's
might get some
and
instant like gratification.
the cool thing is the things that I'm doing right now, even with the yeasted doughs, like with our Danish and cinnamon rolls and that kind of stuff, we do at least a 2-part rise so that
Hmm.
I started making dough yesterday for what we will bake tomorrow, Friday, and Saturday. Slow fermentation, but we are using yeast in it. You know what I'm saying? I
Right.
mean, this dough will sit overnight tonight. We'll do another fold and another turn, and then we'll get back to it tomorrow and do something else with it and bake a few off. But yeah, so it's even the things that we do with yeasted doughs are sitting and
Yeah.
marinating
Yeah.
from, I don't know what you'd call I don't know what the
Right.
technical term is. You might. I know Liz
They're
would know. Liz, what am I doing?
well, you're just doing a multi-part proof is what's happening. And
Yeah,
for the
that's
listeners,
actually what it is.
if you don't know, like when you fold yeasted dough and let it sit and rise again, you're creating all those delicious layers. Like that's
Yes,
what's happening. And so
exactly.
it's kind of like if you've made pie crust, which is not yeasted, but it's the same idea, right? You
Right.
are creating those layers of the flour in the dough is encapsulating the butter, and
Yep.
as the butter melts, it gives off steam, and you get those little pockets of like flaky and those layers of like deliciousness, right?
Yep.
Man, and you don't have to call it a cheater Danish. You corner that market, Sandra. You just say this is our custom. This is the Hippos and Hashbrowns Danish.
I mean, yeah,
You know,
this is the way we're doing it.
this
It's a
is
bit
this
of
is the way
short. It's
we
a
do
bit
it.
of a shortcut, which is odd to say because, like I say, it takes about 3 or 4 days. But at any rate, it's a slight shortcut.
Yeah.
But yeah, I am absolutely loving it.
Well,
Yeah, it's really good and fun to
3
make.
and 4 days like on a Danish is absolutely a shortcut. I can't tell you the last time um, that I made any kind of laminated dough like that. It was probably culinary school, and I decided it just wasn't
Yeah.
worth my time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Mhm.
I would get super irritated and be like, man, they make really great puff pastry at the store from
They really do.
Cox.
They really do, don't they?
And if you dress it up just right, it'll do exactly what you want for a
Yeah.
lot less time.
For
It's
sure.
a lot less time invested. So Hippos and Hash Browns is located over in Casa View. Super cute storefront little shop. So any listeners that are in the Dallas area, if you aren't able to make it over to Casa View, maybe your favorite food podcast host would go over there for you to pick up whatever you would like. The Hippo Crisp, right? Those are available at Whole Foods and Central Market. Is that correct?
They are at Whole Foods right now.
Whole Foods, right.
Like all the DFW Whole Foods stores right now are carrying 2 flavors of that. We have a third flavor,
Ooh, exciting.
and you can get the third flavor is available at Cox Farms and at Scardello.
Excellent.
Those are the only 2 people that are carrying the third flavor, which if I am, of course, you can get it at the shop. But it's a real compliment to the line. It's an everything bagel seasoned flavor, so it's completely savory. We finish it with Maldon salt. Yeah, totally on the savory side.
I feel like everything bagel is having its moment for like the past
Absolutely it is
2 years. It is just on everything and everywhere.
Yeah. We do a biscuit with it as well. So yeah.
I have to give a quick shout out to Lubby's Bagels that just opened over on Peavey. They have some of the best everything bagels. If you're going the bagel route, man, those are really, really delicious.
Yeah, they're right around the corner from us. Hit that one, hit us. You're
so good.
Yeah, it's really good. We finally had it for the first time last week. We were celebrating Chef's birthday, and so I'm like, we're getting bagels for breakfast. They were good.
I love they really, really are good. And when you want to talk about fermentation, that's the thing they employ there as well to get that nice crackle on the outside of their bagels.
Yeah, it's so good.
But East Dallas, right? It's there is of course competition for who's going to make the best whatever, but then I find that all the local businesses are supporting each other. You can see it on their social media. You're all going out and buying from each other, which is a beautiful thing.
Sure.
It's a beautiful thing. It's one of the things that I love about East Dallas. And then why East Dallas? Is this where you are originally from?
My husband and I grew up in Garland.
Me too.
And so, did you? Yeah, that's. Yes. I think we talked about that. Yeah. So we graduated from South Garland, and we had our first date. We went to the movies at Casa Linda and out to eat at El Phoenix. When we were in high school. So yeah, Garland didn't have anything to do back in those days, so East Dallas was the closest place, I shopped at Casa View when I was a kid.
Right. That movie theater, wasn't it the best?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I saw the 3 original Star Wars films there when they re-released them, I believe for their 20th anniversary. So
wow.
That was in 95, I suppose, or somewhere around there. But it's such a really cool area, both Casa Linda and Casa View, with really rich history. And I love what you've done with your storefront to kind of keep some of that exposed brick on the inside. If anybody hasn't been there, you have to go by and see it. Tell me what your hours of operation are.
So we're open Thursday and Friday from 8:30 to 2:30 and Saturday from 9 to 2.
Awesome. And so on the Food for Thoughtcast website, I will have a link in the guest bio page for Sandra, and then you can find all things Hippos and Hash Browns there. Or she also has a really precious Instagram that gets updated quite often. And then there's a password, I think, that you can access for a secret menu. Is that right?
Yes, there is. If you get on our email list, you get access to that. So that's a fun thing. And also you can find us at the White Rock Farmers Market on Saturdays, every Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. At the White Rock Farmers Market. And then you said Cox and Scardello, and then there's also Market Provisions, right?
Market Provisions carries us. Foxtrot carries the crisps at their Dallas locations. Sita's Kitchen, right across the street from us in Casa View. They carry
absolutely.
Our waffles and biscuits. Yeah, so we're all over the place.
I love it. You're building a Hippos and Hash Browns empire. It's happening.
Well, also you can get it delivered like throughout Texas. If you happen to be like on the delivery services, the the produce box delivery services,
Right.
farmhouse delivery. They go all throughout Texas.
That's amazing. I
So
didn't know
if
that.
you're like in a big city in Texas and you sign up for farmhouse delivery, yeah, you can find some of Hippos and Hash Browns products there, specifically for sure the waffles, some of the
Yeah.
crisps, some of the biscuits. And Central Market is carrying some of the biscuits in some of their stores as well.
I love that. So, we talked about the crisp and the waffles. You said that you were starting Danishes, but for those of you who don't know, Hippos and Hash Browns also carry cinnamon rolls, biscuits, cinnamon biscuits, zucchini bread. You have breakfast empanadas, all sort of cookies, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
granola.
Yeah.
And then I know that on a previous episode on the Food for Thoughtcast Instagram, I asked our followers what their favorite breakfast was. And I believe that you mentioned cookies at some point. I have to know more about this. Or do you have a favorite cookie?
My favorite is sometimes the current one that we are, just
Sure,
developed
sure.
usually. But I will tell you, our customers' favorite cookie right now is far and away our brown sugar pecan shortbread.
Oh man.
We introduced that a couple of months ago, I think. And I mean, it's going crazy. We almost sell out of them almost every week. And so that's the item that we're going to do for Christmas. We're going to put them in like cookie tins, and
Oh,
that'll
I
be our
love it.
big Christmas promotion. So you'll be able to buy a tin of pecan shortbread cookies to give to 100 of your friends, please. And thank you.
Absolutely. Well, I have to get back over there to get waffles. I think I finished the last thing that I ate about a day and a half, and that's why I didn't allow myself to buy any more for a little while.
Tragic. Tragic.
But right, it's a tragedy. I love getting off of a really long shift, and I will take one of those waffles, toast in the oven. I will put maple sausage and a runny poached egg on top, and it cover the whole thing with hot sauce and syrup, and it's a little ridiculous. And so it's really good. It's so
we
good.
have one customer. She uses it like for her avocado toast.
Oh, I didn't think of that. That's brilliant.
Yeah, I know. I never would have thought of it either,
man.
but isn't it clever? Yeah.
Well,
And we
not
have them with
only
pecans right now.
oh, stop it. I didn't know that either.
Yeah.
That not only is that it's awesome because you get to eat the delicious sourdough waffle, right? But I believe your sourdough waffles are cheaper than local sourdough bread. So that's a win.
Yeah.
That's a win both ways because I like to say, I'm a waffles over pancakes gal because waffles have compartments for holding syrup.
I know. Oh, the texture.
And so, man, I can't even imagine like what happens when you're putting all that avocado goodness on there. You have all the crevices and cracks. Oh, now I'm hungry. Now I'm getting really hungry.
Now I want that.
Yeah, absolutely. And is there anything else we should know about Hippos and Hash Browns?
Gosh, I don't know. We're coming up on holiday seasons. We have started doing catering trays. So if you need like a tray of breakfast empanadas or cookies or muffins or biscuit to feed your crowd, we're doing that. We really want to be your go-to for that kind of thing. If you've got a corporate thing that you're hosting and you need to feed everybody muffins that day, let us know. We can do a tray of quick bread. I'm going to talk to a gal on Monday about doing cookies for her wedding. So I'm excited about that too.
Oh, how exciting. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I saw you post some pictures the other day of these muffins that looked amazing. I was just like, oh my gosh, that's so many muffins.
Yeah. We do muffins. We do wholesale coffee shop stuff for Well Grounded also. So they, like, if you want to go sit down, have a sit down waffle at a place, one of our waffles at a place where you can sit down and eat it, you can go to Well Grounded. They carry our waffles, muffins.
I love that so much. Sandra, it's been a pleasure getting to know you and talking to you today. The Food for Thoughtcast is a big fan of Hippos and Hash Browns, so you will see us sharing your content all over the World Wide Web, and I'm going to start rallying with, just like everybody else in East Dallas should. You do need tables and chairs in that alcove. Where your place is,
right?
So
I don't know. In my head, I'm like, we should have like a waffle Wednesday where we have like a waffle supper one Wednesday night. We just throw everybody comes out there, and can you imagine?
Wouldn't it be pretty? Some string lights and
They've got string lights. Oh my gosh, they've got string lights. But y'all might need to bring your own chair or something, and we'll figure. I don't know. Yeah, I'm with you. We've got to figure it out.
I see it. I see it happening now. Some sort of Wednesday night waffle party. I love that. I think it would be great for the community. It might be like a good school fundraiser too. Maybe like local
It'd be a
PTAs
great
or something
fundraiser.
like that.
I agree. Great idea,
Yeah.
Melissa.
I want that to happen so I can come eat all the waffles.
Okay, great idea. Good idea.
All right. Well, it was a pleasure. I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
That's a wrap for today. Until the next episode of the Food for Thoughtcast, make good food, eat good food, share it, and be kind to one another.
Thanks so much for listening today. You are part of what makes us special, and we are so glad you joined us. Don't forget to rate, subscribe, and leave a review. Just like food, delicious podcasts are better when you share them with others. Come back for seconds wherever podcasts are served, and we'll catch you in the next episode of the Food for Thoughtcast.
You can find us on Facebook and Instagram at the Food for Thoughtcast or at www.foodforthoughtcast.com, where you can link to all podcast players, or you can send us an email at foodforthoughtcmc@gmail.com.